What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the most comprehensive weekly NFL player review series on the internet, my Studs and Duds series. Today we'll be reviewing the studs and duds from NFL Week 2, whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling. And while we do that, I'll be going through this week's update for my own custom Madden roster. So while these ratings do come from a video game, believe me, I realize that these are my own ratings, and it's an effective way to show you my own perceptions of these players. So buckle up, we're going to get into this game by game, but I do ask that you take a second to hit that like button down below and also share this video with your friends who you think would also enjoy. So here we go, starting with the star of the week, and it is going to be, no surprise here, Cameron Newton of the New England Patriots. I was wrong, big wrong about Cam Newton. I really never denied that if he were healthy, he would be really great. And I loved the high risk, low reward signing from the Patriots. But as far as what I actually predicted would happen, it most certainly was not this. Two big things here. I thought even if he was healthy, I didn't think he'd be able to throw the ball as accurate as he has. And that's been the biggest surprise. Mainly, of course, in the short to intermediate game, but he even hit a deep ball to Julian Edelman this week that showed that he can at least stretch the field a little bit. And then the other side of this is they're actually using him a ton in the running game, and I wasn't really sure if they were going to do that or not. I had a feeling it would be effective if they did, because it's the Patriots and Cam Newton. But with his injury history, I wasn't sure if they would really lean on that part of his game, and they really are, and he looks outstanding. So +7 for Cam Newton, bringing him back to where he was before all of those injuries started to stack up. Credit the medical staff, credit Cam Newton for, the perseverance to get through what to me looked like career-ending injuries, plural, to his shoulder. And while I don't think he has the wicked arm strength that he once did, it is very much NFL functional at this point, and he's even, to me, improved his accuracy and all of that stuff. So big time for Cam Newton. He has this Patriots offense playing better than it has in years, and big reason to be stoked if you were a Patriots fan. So I was wrong. Cam Newton going up big time. Definitely the biggest movement for any starting quarterback I've ever done. Then we have our dud of the week. Todd Gurley, -4. I said it last week, he looks bad. Like he has no burst, he's not making guys miss. They're leaning on him too much, probably because of the name on his jersey, not the player that is inside of it. And it's just been more of the same here in week 2. So of course we go film first here, and it very much has shown on the film. But let me read you some Todd Gurley stats here. He has 117 yards on the ground. Not bad for 2 games, but it's a lot of volume. He has 3.3 average yards per carry on 35 attempts. He has avoided 0 tackles on those 35 attempts. He is the only running back with more than 20 attempts in the league that has avoided 0 tackles. And he is also PFF's 52nd of 53 qualifying running backs, ahead of just Benny Snell of the Steelers for PFF rushing grade. He is done. I'm sorry. I hope he proves me wrong just like Cam Newton did. And this is an injury-intensive star and dud. But when you want to talk about a running game and arthritis in the knee and that lack of explosion, I just don't see him turning this thing around. So he's going to go down from an 81 to a 77. It still makes him a starting caliber running back, but man, that is falling quickly. And I mean, could this be like the start of a potential retirement for Todd Gurley? I'm really that low on what we're seeing from Todd Gurley. And I think the Falcons need to stop leaning on him so much because it's unhealthy for him, and it's especially unhealthy for their offense. Honorary mentions for the star was James Robinson of the Jaguars. We'll get into him. And Drew Brees was an honorary dud who we will get to. All right, so let's get into our first game here. I want to move a little faster this week just for my own sake. I know you guys like it when I talk so long, but let's go. Giants at Bears. Only one player moving here for the New York Giants. I thought they, for the most part, looked as I expected against the Bears, but Dexter Lawrence absolutely stood up, last year's first-round pick on that defensive line. A total rock star against the run. He can blow some things up as a pass rusher as well. I don't know how high his ceiling is. I don't know if he'll ever get to the level of Akeem Hicks or Kenny Clark, where you're that superstar nose tackle that can also rush the passer, and he doesn't even mostly play nose tackle here because of the other bodies here. But he keeps ascending. He impressed as a rookie and continues to climb here early in year 2. Some notes here. James Bradbury was a big free agent signing. Seems to have been a good eye by Joe Judge. He is playing well. Blake Martinez as well, a big free agent signing that I've been... I don't even think very critical does it justice. I've been straight up rude to Blake Martinez. I think he's terrible. He looks more instinctive out there in this defense. He's at least flying to the ball in run defense. Now, we'll see how that looks against the San Francisco 49ers this week. I strongly believe Blake Martinez was the largest reason the Packers lost to the Niners in the NFC Championship, among plenty of other reasons, but his inability to run sideline to sideline really showed up. So this is going to be a big week for Blake Martinez, but he has caught my attention. I'll give him that. And then Lorenzo Carter as well. Not going to get a boost this week, but he's playing great in this multiple scheme. Really natural athlete that in this Belichickian 3-4 defense, he can drop into coverage out of that edge spot. He can bend around the edge. He's defending the run. Looks like a future star edge player for the Giants at a position that they desperately need it. I'm curious to see what his ceiling as a pass rusher can become as well, because he has all the athletic traits. Just needs to develop some of that technique and counter moves and all that stuff. And then one of my guys, Julian Love, is off to a bad start at free safety. Something to monitor. I'm not ready to lower him yet, but he was good as a rookie and is off to a rough start here in 2020. Then for the Chicago Bears, Mitchell Trubisky going to get some respect here. He's playing in rhythm much more. He's throwing the ball more accurately. He's been far from perfect, but he's been much better than Mitchell Trubisky of last year. So he's going to go up +1 here, and he has a big game this week against the Atlanta Falcons. He's going to have to score some points this week to keep up with an explosive offense. So keeping an eye on that. Then Darnell Mooney. This guy is really showing up. He's in a bit of a crowded receiving room, to be honest, with Robinson and Miller there and the tight ends here, but he is making some plays out here, and Trubisky really seems to like this guy. I liked Mooney in the draft. I had a 4th-round grade on him. He reminded me a little bit of Deontay Johnson, who I really liked a year ago coming out of Toledo. I want to read you my draft write-up on Mooney because it sounds pretty good. Ideal speed and quickness to separate and create run after catch at the next level. Most of his routes are just him running and cutting hard, has room to develop his footwork. The same applies to his release footwork. Tracks the ball very well and elevates for the catch, which can help him make it as a deep threat. Is better on contested balls and as a run blocker than you'd expect for a more slender wide receiver. Drops are an issue with him and maybe something you have to deal with Mooney at the next level. So I like what he brings as far as the quickness to really develop as a high-level separator, and he has some of that physical toughness about him as well. He's been winning some tough catches and run blocking really well for this team. So the Bears, to me, have a lot of kind of sleeper wide receivers, and if Trubisky can continue to elevate, we might see some more of that potential. So things are on the rise for this Bears offense. Then Jermaine Ifedi as well, a good signing, a former tackle that they are plugging in at guard, and he's playing well enough. Right guard was a big problem, question mark rather, for this team. Demetrius Harris was a tight end signing as well. They've got plenty of them, but Harris worked with Matt Nagy in Kansas City, kind of back where he's comfortable here, really run blocking well in this scheme, yet to do much as a receiver. Then Jalen Johnson is just super comfortable in this scheme. They run a lot of zone coverage, which is what he did at Utah. Plug and play. Looking like an excellent pick in the 2nd round. Between him and Mooney, some good draft picks there for Ryan Pace, who gets a lot of flack for the Trubisky pick, but is pretty decent at finding players in the mid-rounds, if you ask me. Another guy, Javon Wims, is a good receiver one of those receivers we mentioned being kind of a sleeper here. I liked him coming out of Georgia. They got him in the 6th round. I think I had a 4th round on him. More of a bigger bodied, tough catch kind of guy with some fluid movement skills. He's getting more playing time, not a lot of volume here, but getting on the field, making a couple plays with the opportunities he has. And then the 2 edge rushers here both look great. No increases this week, but playing up to their potential so far. And could even exceed expectations if they continue to play like they're playing. That pass rush looks back. Then we have our next game here, Atlanta at the Dallas Cowboys. So the Atlanta Falcons, their offense looks great, and a big part of that is the receivers other than Julio Jones stepping up in a bigger way than they have in years past. Everyone else kind of looks like the Falcons we know and love offensively, but Calvin Ridley is running extremely fluid routes. His hands have been secure. He's been good after the catch. He looks phenomenal. So he continues to rise here, plus 180 to an 81. And then Russell Gage out of the slot there continues to see a lot of volume, and he is delivering. Kind of this tall, lengthy slot type. I compared him last week to Jay Sharp, and I like that comparison. And then just a couple notes here. Julio Jones banged up here. I thought he looked pretty good in week 1, but a bad drop in this game. Didn't really do much in this game, so he's banged up. He's not quite playing like he's capable of. No downgrade here, but something to keep an eye on. And then these 2 corners, despite the amount of yardage that this defense gave up, Terrell and Oliver have actually held their own, all things considered. Not going to get any boost this week, but I think they're playing okay and could be due for a boost in the future if they continue to do that. Then we have the Cowboys side of the ball. Ezekiel Elliott looks phenomenal. I was really hard on him last year, and I think I might know why now. He seemed to be playing overweight last year. He didn't have the same burst and power and wasn't, fighting for as many tough yards, breaking tackles. And he's been great in the receiving game this year too. So Zeke, to me, very quickly has passed the eye test to get back into that top 5 running back conversation, somewhere I had dropped him out of. But good for Zeke, coming back in shape. He's getting paid here, so you would hope he steps up and is that high-end running back, and he's showing it this year. And then Dalton Schultz, I'm mad at myself that I didn't add him in my dynasty leagues because I liked him coming out, and I even caught flack for saying that he can be somewhat of a Jason Witten in this Cowboys team, on this team, as a guy that's a chain mover, a decent, not great blocker, just a steady force as a receiver, and he was a reception machine this week, getting that start due to the unfortunate injury to Jarwin. But I've always seen Schultz as a higher upside, or at least more reliable option than Jarwin. So he's not quite as fast, so I don't think upside is the right word there, but I like Dalton Schultz nonetheless. And then we have Blake Bell, the other tight end, contributing as a blocker for this team. So he's going to go up just a little bit, the former quarterback out of Oklahoma. Then linebacker Joe Thomas, reunited with Mike McCarthy here. Not that that matters, but he is going to go up 1, getting a lot of opportunities here with the injury to Leighton Vander Esch, and he is stepping up, kind of showing off that sideline-to-sideline speed, making an impact in run defense and in coverage. And then Xavier Woods looks great. I've talked about him potentially having a big season here for the Cowboys, a contract year. Almost everyone in this secondary is in a contract year. He's showing off some of that range at free safety. He's tackling well. Looks like someone that is going to be due at least a starting caliber market value contract there at safety in the offseason, or maybe even before that, depending on how the Cowboys feel about him. And then we have the Lions-Packers game here. Lots of movement for this Lions offensive line that played great, both in run blocking and in pass protection this week. That's really the receiving passing game that was letting this offense down a little bit, but the offensive line did their part this week. Frank Ragnow continues his ascension as the potential number 1 center in the league. He has very much graded out like that for the better part of about 20 games now. It's just he's a young player and is continuing that climb as he shows that consistency. And then Taylor Decker got a big contract extension this offseason. He looks like he's in great shape. He's playing the best football of his career, in my opinion. Jonah Jackson, Detroit very much needed someone to step up at that right guard spot, and it's been Jonah Jackson. A 3rd-round pick out of Ohio State. Looking like he's going to be at least a starting caliber guard, but he has a lot of physical tools. He could very much develop very well with Ragnow next to him specifically, but Tyrell Crosby at right tackle playing well as well. I talked about him last week, but kind of more of the same. He's just stable. He's been run blocking really well, making the most of this opportunity with Vaitai out. And to me, you got to play either Crosby or Vaitai at guard and kick out, Ode Abushi at left guard. Crosby, to me, looks like a starting caliber offensive lineman going up for the second week in a row here. And then at wide receiver, Quintez Cephas, who was ironically, I compared him to Marvin Jones, who's going to go down this week, so we're potentially seeing the ascension of Detroit's number 2 wide receiver as that deep threat guy. Neither of these guys are elite separators, but both have fantastic catch-in-traffic ability. I really like Quintez Cephas at Wisconsin, and he's getting some opportunities here with Golladay out, and he's, it hasn't been high volume, nothing crazy here, but he has executed what's been asked of him, which is good for a young rookie. And then Marvin Jones is struggling, and part of this could just be he's never going to be a team's number 1 wide receiver. He's always been a guy that benefits from making tough catches when he gets one-on-one looks. But he just doesn't quite look the same. He's not winning those tough catches, and he's not quite showing the same separation as he is now on the other side of 30. So there are your Lions. Stafford's going to get a little ding this week. It wasn't anything major, but I do have him rated pretty highly, and he's not really showing out so far as a top 10 quarterback this year. Could be due for a little reduction if he doesn't turn it around rather quickly. Then on to the Packers side of the ball, more movement on the offensive line. Corey Linsley has been incredible this week. The Packers are going to have, Packers are going to have some really tough decisions to make contractually. They have Corey Linsley up, they have Bakhtiari up, Kevin King, but Linsley right there with Ragnow playing like one of the best centers in the league, and his improvement as a run blocker has really shown in this new scheme here with all of this zone running. So he looks great. Lucas Patrick coming out of nowhere, a 27-year-old veteran that's been around, bounced around kind of the practice squad and depth here. He's getting opportunities due to some injuries on this offensive line, and he's showing why the Packers have a great eye for these kind of players, and that he could potentially be next in line for these kind of late-round undrafted guys to potentially cement himself as a starter. He's really playing well, especially in pass protection. Then we have Robert Tonyan. Did have a big drop this week, no boost to his receiving skills, but for a lighter tight end, he is really learning how to leverage himself, especially on the move in this scheme as a blocker. So getting some run blocking respect this week. Then we have wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I wish I had a roller coaster emoji to put next to him instead of that fire emoji, because he didn't necessarily have a great game, but what he's doing is he's showing that he can get open. So, his ability to separate is there, but man alive, I think I said it perfectly in the podcast this week. When you throw the ball to MVS, whether he's double covered or wide open, it's still going to be a 50-50 ball. It really feels that bad. He doesn't have ball tracking. He doesn't have the concentration at the catch point. Hell, he doesn't even have the technique to extend his arms for the catch. So he's just a brutal hands receiver, but he's long and tall and fast and can get open, and Rodgers likes that about him. But man, has this been a roller coaster for MVS. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Jair Alexander has been lights out. He's probably been the best corner in the NFL this year off the first 2 weeks of the season. He's got a test against Drew Brees this week. Luckily, no Mike Thomas, but Jair has looked phenomenal for Green Bay. And then also in the slot there, Chandon Sullivan had a pick 6 this week, another good pass deflection. So he continues to climb, was a breakout player in a lot of lights in the slot there for Green Bay last year. And then Rashawn Gary, my guy, 2 sacks this week. Despite Detroit's line playing well, Gary was the guy that was able to get through. So he's going to get some respect here. He looked decent in week 1. He's a guy that doesn't get full playing time here, but he really has elevated his physical profile, getting in shape this year, and looks great to start the season. And then just some notes for Green Bay. Jay Sternberger, a couple of brutal drops this week. You hope he can shake that off. He's a guy that they're kind of leaning on to be a potential star tight end here in a scheme that relies on that tight end position. So hopefully he can shake that off. Then the D-line was just terrible here. No one's going to go down, but against a tough Saints team, definitely something we want to monitor. And the safeties as well, Amos and Savage, have not been great. Could be due for decreases if they don't turn it around as well. Next game, staying in the NFC North with the Minnesota Vikings. Right tackle Brian O'Neill continues his ascension here. Going to go up 177 to a 78. One of the best and most powerful blockers on the move. An exceptional athlete. Looks great in this scheme. I've talked about him plenty of times before, so he continues to impress. Kirk Cousins, really no surprise here. He's going to go down one. Probably the worst quarterback performance of the season, unless I'm forgetting one. But man, this was just ugly. And yeah, he was under pressure, but it wasn't like an absurd amount, honestly. Just bad decisions, inaccuracy, panicking under pressure. Just a terrible week for Kirk Cousins. And it really is starting to look like no Stephon Diggs here is a bigger deal than we maybe thought. Just your typical surrounding core is really a big part of quarterback performance. And then Jalen Holmes, an oversized but athletic defensive end hybrid, is playing some of that early down, typical 4-3 edge defender, run defending role, and is doing it at pretty high levels. So getting some run defense respect there for Jalen Holmes. And then just some notes here. Justin Jefferson, they finally started to get him going a little bit later in this game. He's been good when they've thrown the ball to him, and I expect him to actually have a pretty big week this week against Tennessee, who has some problems in the slot. So keep an eye on Justin Jefferson this week. Right guard was an issue for the Vikings. They started a young player in Drew Samia, a former Oklahoma player. He really struggled against Buckner and Autry in the middle there. So it could be due for a decrease if we see him again and he looks bad, or if we just don't see him again. And then Yannick Ngakoue looked much better this week, and a familiar opponent going against Anthony Costanzo. But regardless, kind of reverting some of the bad things we said about him last week. Not an insane performance, but a respectable one nonetheless. And then for the Colts, Mo Alley Cox was a potential star of the week candidate. He gets the start here. No Jack Doyle in this game, and just Phillip Rivers thrown to a former basketball player here. Antonio Gates much here. Mo Alley Cox looks great. He's actually really developed as a run blocker since coming out of college as a basketball player. He's been a slow riser here for the Colts, but this was his best and most impactful performance as a receiver, and it happened to be in the first start of his career. So an eye-opening performance from Mo Alley Cox. Just picture Antonio Gates, not an elite separator necessarily, but a guy that can make really tough contested catches and actually be a pretty decent run blocker as well, with a really thick trunk. Then right guard Mark Glowinski had a down year last year after breaking out in 2018. Looks to be much more in shape, granted against a pretty soft Vikings D-line, but looks much more like the 2018 version of Mark Glowinski, which is a boost for an already dominant offensive line. With the receiving group here, T.Y. Hilton does not look particularly good. He's been kind of bottled up. He's been not making some of those tougher catches that we're used to with him. He's rated pretty highly by me, and he has certainly not played up to it. Some of it could just be a lack of chemistry with Phil Rivers, or just a bad pairing there, because Rivers isn't the best deep ball thrower at this stage in his career. But regardless, T.Y. Hilton is not impressed. He's going to go down one. And then free safety Julian Blackmon, a pretty brutal loss of Malik Hooker. Rough. His contract year, they didn't pick up his fifth-year option, and they draft Julian Blackmon at his position, potentially to replace him. And Blackmon comes in and plays pretty well. Now, Malik Hooker is a guy that's absolutely going to get another opportunity. I tweeted about what if he goes to Seattle and pairs with Jamal Adams. Can you say Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor repeat much? But the Colts have themselves a player here in Julian Blackmon. This is a guy that I thought would have flirted with the first round if he didn't tear his ACL in his final college game at Utah. Think Marcus Williams, coming out of the same school, same scheme, great athlete, really good free safety for the Saints. I think Julian Blackmon can be everything Marcus Williams is, which is a better player than Malik Hooker. So good start for Julian Blackmon. He's, I would assume, going to be the starting free safety, and good for him to basically take advantage of the injury luck swinging back the other way. He got screwed in the draft by injury. Well, the injury gods are rewarding him at the cost of Malik Hooker. Then we have some notes here. DeForest Buckner playing up to his pay grade this week. If he plays like that every week, he's definitely going to go up. And Kari Willis, kind of an unknown strong safety for this Colts team, had a good week as well. A player I like and will be going up if he continues to play like that. Then we have the Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins. So for the Bills, this passing game has really impressed. It does start with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, and both of them are going to go up one this week. So Diggs, don't really need to explain that. He's found a great home here with a quarterback that, he had the similar thing in Kirk Cousins, but it's working here. And Stephon Diggs is playing some of the best football of his career. So he is honestly been a better fit with Josh Allen than I thought. And that comes back to Josh Allen. And I really talked about him in depth on my podcast a couple days ago. So I'm not going to go into everything I said in there, but he looks more comfortable. And the best thing you can say about Josh Allen, because I do think some of those accuracy stuff are still there, and I don't know if they'll ever go away, but the best thing about Josh Allen is the game seems to be slowing down. And I think it's a great combination of him himself being a really high character, high work ethic kind of guy and improving some of that stuff. He's starting to throw with touch, which is a great example of throwing with anticipation and seeing the defense and seeing the field much better. But he also has great receivers here that are creating really good separation here to help him see the field better, and a really nice coaching staff that's really helped him along. So really good job by Buffalo to take what was considered a raw prospect, and great job by Josh Allen to have that tenacious work ethic to really evolve as a quarterback. So he hasn't really played many defenses yet. That's why he's not getting a huge boost. But if he plays like he played against the Jets and the Dolphins, against real competition starting this week against the Rams, he is going to go up, and he's a guy that very quickly could get into the top 10 quarterback conversation if he looks like this against everyone. And then another big piece here, Ed Oliver for this defense. He's a guy that I've been saying really since they drafted him that if he can be the player that I am confident that he can be, which is some cross between Grady Jarrett and Aaron Donald as a really high-end top 10 pass rusher with elite athleticism on the interior, then that's going to change the upside of this defense that's already really good. But outside of like Tre'Davious White, they don't really have true superstars. So to pair a secondary like this with an elite pass rusher up front would be huge. And they're making steps towards that with the way Ed Oliver looks in year 2 here. He was a guy that was fairly raw coming out of Houston and needed some development. What a great spot, similar to the Josh Allen pick in a lot of ways, to get him in a place with coaches that will help him work on some of that stuff. And it's showing here in 2020. So Ed Oliver could be a fast riser if he continues. But again, against the Jets and Dolphins offensive lines, you want to pump the brakes just a little bit. And then just some notes here. Levi Wallace got just exposed this week by the Dolphins. Really, anyone they threw at him, he was struggling. They went right at him, and I think that Sean McVay is absolutely going to have his eye on that again. And if Levi Wallace struggles, he could be a fast faller next week. And then we have the Dolphins. This is going to include week 3, but really not a ton of movement. The Dolphins honestly kind of look the way I expected. Just not a ton of stars, but Fitzpatrick just kind of making things happen. A little bit of Mike Gesicki development. Devontae Parker's playing well. The defense isn't all that good. It's really been pretty predictable from the Dolphins' perspective, I think. But the evolution of Mike Gesicki is certainly something that the Dolphins wanted to see this season. The age of the tight end is upon us. It's a topic I might talk about in my podcast next week, but Mike Gesicki is right there with all of these high-rising elite athletes at the tight end position. Still not much of a run blocker, and he plays a lot of actual slot wide receiver, but man, is he a mismatch problem. Think about a guy like Darren Waller, who just runs away from linebackers and is just too big for any kind of slot corner to handle. So a really good mismatch problem for the Dolphins between him and Parker and some of these other underneath guys, and Preston Williams stepping up. You definitely like the receiving talent that is starting to show out in Miami. And then on defense, one player that has been a little bit better than I expected is Shaq Lawson, playing a lot more outside linebacker than he did in Buffalo, and he actually seems like a natural at that. He's been a better pass rusher. He's continued to dominate as a run defender. So this is a player that Miami gave a lot of money, and he's playing close to that pay grade. They gave him a lot of money for a guy that's maybe not even a starting caliber edge rusher, but he's showing that he can at least get after the passer a little bit, and we know he's a great run defender. And he's the only one on this defensive line that can get after the passer at all. All right, our next game here, San Francisco at the New York Jets. Man, San Francisco just rolling despite the injuries. Credit a lot of things here, most notably Kyle Shanahan. Jordan Reed, we know when he's healthy, he's a great tight end. And he's healthy, and he's playing like a great tight end. He seamlessly filled in for George Kittle this week and just dominated. So +4 for Jordan Reed. If he continues to be healthy and play like this, we could see him get up to like 85. And then if they get George Kittle back, you've got 2 potentially elite tight ends, which could get really dangerous with this offense. And then you could get Debo back. Brandon Ayuk started to get going at the end of this game. So, man, don't count the Niners out quite yet just because of all these injuries. Then the 2 running backs look great. Raheem Mostert, now the fastest running back in the game. If you care about my Madden roster, up to 97 speed. The fastest running back I've seen since peak Chris Johnson. And Kyle Shanahan is letting him loose. It feels like a guy that every week is going to have one of these 50-plus yard runs because the blocking and scheming is so good here that when he gets that lane, you can't catch this guy. So Raheem Mostert, and then Jerick McKinnon has been a great relief pitcher for that. And making a big impact in the receiving game as well. He looks great. He's another one of these guys that when healthy, we know he can play. But even in this scheme, he's perfect for this Shanahan outside zone, take advantage of speed and get the ball in the hands of your playmakers type of stuff. And then on the defense, Kevin Givens, a good athlete out of Penn State, went undrafted in year 2 here on the interior defensive line. He is getting into this rotation and stepping up. There's some opportunities there as DeForest Buckner has head out. Solomon Thomas is now out for the season. Givens potentially could be a guy that takes advantage of those opportunities. And then Emmanuel Mosley continues to go up. Really impressed last season. He's the established starter on the outside now. And he looks pretty good out there. He's just a good quality starting caliber number 2 corner at this point. I think it's pretty safe to say. And then Fred Warner is going to go up 182 to an 83. This guy is so good. He's still young, and every linebacker is going to have rough weeks here and there. So it kind of makes it harder for you to truly ascend a guy like this up to the Bobby Wagner range. But man, he just shows up every 2 or 3 weeks and he just pops off the film. Great in coverage. He's tackling better this year. So Fred Warner going up, creeping up and up towards the top linebacker ranking for me. But there's a guy in Tampa Bay, Levante David, that's playing pretty damn good football, and Bobby Wagner still exists as well. But I think Warner is a guy that could get up to that level. And then just some notes here. Jimmy G was actually really good in the start of this game, granted against the Jets, but showed some toughness too to stay in there and do enough to make sure the Niners had a good enough lead before they handed it over to Nick Mullins. I think the Niners will be just fine to take care of the Giants without him this week, and then hopefully they can get him back. Brandon Ayuk, like I said, got going later in this game. And then Kerry Hyder, another guy taking advantage of the Solomon Thomas injury. He looks better. Like the game he had this week, granted against a bad Jets line, might have been the best game of Solomon Thomas's career. Hyder is a very similar player as that kind of oversized edge player, but undersized interior player. A guy that's had a decent career as a pass rusher with some quickness. They may have actually upgraded by having Solomon Thomas get injured here, which, you hate to see that, but it might be true. And then on the Jets side of the ball, the left side of the offensive line hasn't been terrible, especially from a run blocking perspective, and Mekhi Becton looks like a natural, which is saying a lot for the Jets, who everything is just a train wreck, and nobody can look like a natural out there. But he's doing a good job, and he's definitely, in a lot of ways, proving me wrong. I had a good feeling that he would come in and be a stable pass protector from the get-go. There's a couple of things that I wanted to see him improve upon, such as blitz recognition and not giving up the inside on counter moves. But where I really questioned him was actually a unpopular take, and that was as a run blocker. I know he ran extremely fast at the combine, but I didn't see that get off on tape at Louisville. And he is run blocking much better in a different scheme here for the Jets. just kind of that mauling inside zone type of stuff where you don't necessarily need that get off, but he gets the guys in front of him and can just move dudes. And potentially even Alex Lewis next to him is benefiting from that. These inside zones that Adam Gase runs are going to have a lot of double teams out there on the 5 or a 4 tech. So Lewis is grading out really well as a run blocker, so he's going to go up a little bit, not much as a pass protector, but the right side of the offensive line, you can't really say the same. Connor McGovern, a big free agent signing, is disappointing, and then Greg Van Roten, another free agent signing, is not really working out either. Jets really hoped that these guys would click, kind of doing the Buffalo Bills style of just throwing a bunch of small level resources at this position, guys like McGovern and Van Roten, and through 2 weeks it has not looked particularly good. And then on the D-line, John Franklin Myers. This was a great pickup by the Jets. The Rams let him go because they had a crowded defensive line. And Franklin Myers, in limited opportunities last year for the Jets, played well. And he's getting in there as part of this rotation as this hybrid defensive end. Particularly impressing in run defense in that role. So he's going to get some respect. I expect him to continue to see more playing time. He's more of a high upside type of guy. I was surprised the Rams let him go to begin with. And then just some notes here. Pierre Desir was benched last week. He ends up coming back into this game and played much better, so just a note on that. And then Quinnen Williams, potentially the best game of his career as a Jet. I believe he had 2 sacks in this game. So a big game for Quinnen Williams. He's obviously rated very highly and hasn't met up to that rating, so he's in this week playing up to that rating, but a guy with much more potential than where we have him right now in the mid to high 70s. All right, let's keep it rolling here with the Rams at Eagles game. Rams offense continues to impress. Cooper Kupp, I talked about him on my podcast this week. I know he ran like close to a 4.6, but man, does he not run like that in pads on a football field. So his speed's going to go up this week. He's creating separation. He looks like one of the best run after the catch receivers in this league right now. He is just tough. He's blocking his ass off. He's been a major part of everything that's clicking for the Rams right now, and he absolutely deserves a boost. And then Tyler Higbee as well, run blocking at a high level, pass blocking at a high level, catching everything thrown his way, maybe getting schemed up a good bit by a tight end friendly scheme, but he is executing and climbing the ranks along with many tight ends in the league right now. And then Darrell Henderson gets an opportunity this week. I was surprised that he has not really been able to overtake Malcolm Brown. I was surprised to see them draft Cam Akers over Darrell Henderson, who was drafted last year in the 3rd round, a highly productive, well-considered running back coming out of Memphis. I thought he would be the heir apparent to Todd Gurley, and it just hasn't been the case to this point, but he finally got that opportunity. The Rams kind of almost forced to play him. The injury to Cam Akers, and I believe Malcolm Brown got hurt as well. And man, Henderson was like, yeah, I'm still here, guys. I'm just kind of waiting for the volume, and he got it, and he looked great. So definitely someone that has star potential. I didn't think he looked quite as explosive as I remember him coming out. Something to monitor there. But he at least was making guys miss and catching everything out of the backfield and doing a good job at a lot of the stuff that they ask of these running backs. And then some interesting stuff going on at safety here. So Jordan Fuller actually starting at free safety. Fuller was he was like a 7th round pick or a 6th round pick, right? Or was he undrafted? Let me know in the comments. But a good couple of weeks here starting at free safety. I liked him coming out of Ohio State. Basically not an elite athlete back there, but a really heady player. Takes, conscious risks. He's kind of the definition of a safety back there at free safety. He doesn't have elite range. He's not going to make a ton of plays on the ball, which, ideally you'd have a better free safety back there, but he's tackling really well. He's keeping everything in front of him. He's preventing big plays, which this is kind of a defense that wants to, do that. Prevent big plays, which will increase the opportunities that a guy like Aaron Donald or Jalen Ramsey can come in and blow something up and create a turnover. So Jordan Fuller's kind of a nice asset to have to help what they want to do on defense. And then Darius Williams, another guy that's showing to have some real nice ball skills here. He is a really interesting prospect here. He really popped in last preseason to me, just didn't get a lot of opportunities with a crowded corner room. But he got on the field later last season after the Marcus Peters trade and started to impress, but he's 5'9", which we don't see a lot of 5'9" corners playing on the outside, which he's doing. And we're like, what's the upside here? They're going to actually start a 5'9" corner on the outside, and they are. And he's been awesome through 2 weeks. So we haven't really seen a star 5'9" corner since Brent Grimes, but that's actually a decent comparison for Darius Williams, who has great ball skills. He's tough and smart. So really impressing me, Darius Williams. And then just some notes here on the Rams. Jared Goff looks great. One of 2 quarterbacks that does not have a turnover-worthy play this year. He has been majority accurate, I should say, and executing this offense, kind of that field general, call it a system quarterback if you want, but just executing everything that Sean McVay needs done here, because everything else is clicking. And then Van Jefferson looks great. I've got him rated pretty high. I really like Van Jefferson, but obviously someone that if he can fully take that starting job from what's his name there for the Rams, the Texas A&M guy's name's escaping me, but if he can take that job, would be big, and will certainly continue to go up, or will start going up. We got a competition to me at left guard. Joseph Noteboom went down for an injury this week. He's been kind of the weak link on that offensive line, and David Edwards, a tackle that I liked coming out of Wisconsin, stepped in and actually I thought played pretty well at guard. So do we see a competition there at left guard and some ratings movement in the future? And then just another note, Taylor Rapp actually, maybe it's an injury, and you guys can let me know if that's true, but actually not getting starting reps this week, only 17 snaps. You got Fuller there at free safety. Rapp, another guy that just doesn't have elite range. And they, I think, like him more as a strong safety, and you, of course, have John Johnson there. So Rapp kind of playing that third safety role, I believe, is what's going on here. I'd have to confirm that for sure, but that's what the snap count would indicate. Taylor Rapp, just something to monitor there. I think if that's the case, it's much more likely that they just see Fuller as a better center fielder. They like what they have in John Johnson, and John Johnson's in a contract year. I think Taylor Rapp could just take that job next year, but just interesting. I thought Rapp was kind of plugged in as a full-time starter, and again, maybe he's injured, but unless Rams fans let me know that, I'm going to go ahead and assume that is what's going on there, because Fuller started last week as well. So then we have the Eagles side of the ball. Carson Wentz going to go down. I mean, anyone with eyeballs can know that he's not playing well. I think it's a little bit overstated. They were very much in this game. Wentz made some plays, but still a boneheaded decision, thrown over the middle of the field into double coverage, a costly interception. They were driving, trying to make this a really good football game heading into the fourth, and Wentz just threw a boneheaded mistake. He's been inaccurate over the middle of the field particularly, and just has not been sharp. So Wentz really dropping here. I will say I think he bounces back in a big way this week, but it's not looking good right now. Now, this is huge for the Philadelphia Eagles because when they've had all these injuries on this offensive line, we knew that one of the guard spots after they had decided to move Peters back to left tackle was going to be a massive red flag. And to get Nate Herbig, a total no-name out of Stanford, who's like 330 pounds, a total like rock-solid mauler type, he has stepped in and played like one of the best guards in football over the first 2 weeks, and he's dealt with a really good interior Washington line, and now he's dealt with Aaron Donald and a really good Rams D line, and has really held up as one of the highest-graded pass-protecting guards in the NFL, and is just standing out. So Nate Herbig here, plus 955 to a 64. Again, a total no-name. But if you want some optimism here for the Eagles, some continuity on that offensive line that is just, it looks completely different than they expected it to look heading into the year. Nate Herbig, a big reason to be optimistic there. Deshaun Jackson's going to go down. He's 33 years old now. He's not been stretching the field in the same way. He's has not been as efficient of a deep threat as he has been, so he's going to go down. And then the two corners here, Avonte Maddox, Nickel Roby Coleman. Not every 5'9" corner can be Darius Williams. Maddox and Coleman are not looking good this year. The secondary as a whole, Nate Gary's going to go down as well. The Rams just obliterated these sort of middle-of-the-field defenders. And with Maddox and Coleman, they're both getting kind of stretched to the outside a little bit. a pretty bad matchup, honestly, with how the Rams offense attacks the middle of the field, and that is not where this Eagles defense is built, and they got exposed this week. And then just some notes here. Jalen Reagor, I don't want to get too far into this, and I think he'll be okay, but he's just a prospect that I didn't say this a whole lot when he was coming out, but he's just one of these guys where he's got all the physical talent, but it's like, where was the production, right? Like, it seems like this is a player that there's always an excuse for. He was at TCU. It's like, oh, it was about the quarterback play. Well, that hasn't stopped a lot of receivers at TCU before. And then he comes out and runs, 4.48 or whatever at the combine, and everyone's like, oh, he's way faster than that. And then they put out this weird, like, totally fake home workout video that says he ran like 4.31. I know he's fast, but I get a weird vibe from Jalen Reagor, and now he's beat up. I know it's not necessarily his fault, but is it something that, maybe there's some lack of mental toughness there? I don't know. It's a total not random take. It's just a gut feeling take I have that Reagor just doesn't have that professional it factor about him. Now, I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he gets healthy and just comes out and dominates. But I'm starting to get a where you at, bro vibe from Jalen Reagor, who did make some plays this week. I don't want to act like he's nowhere to be found, but it doesn't look like he's going to play this week. I don't know. I just get bad vibes from him. Then we got TJ Edwards. He was on my top 10 breakout list heading into the year. He had a good week, but he's still only getting like 20, 24 snaps. Get Nate Gary off the field and put TJ Edwards out there. Philadelphia, I think you can thank me later on that one. The two edge rushers that you really hope would step up as Brandon Graham is getting older and older here, not stepping up this week. Sweat did go up last week, but nowhere to be found this week. And Derek Barnett out there for his season debut and did nothing. So the edge rush a concern. And then Darius Slay himself not playing all that great. I mean, he's not the problem here, but he's also not really helping this secondary. It's been more of the same with Darius Slay. All right, moving on. We have the Broncos-Steelers game. Garrett Bowles going up +2. He has been awesome. He is in shape to start the year, which has been a problem for Garrett Bowles. It's been reports that he's come into the season pretty much his entire career out of shape, and that's not been the case. He's been one of the best tackles in football, which is great to see considering the offensive line is a question mark here. Noah Fant looks outstanding, part of this group of ascending, athletic, freaky tight ends. This team spent a first-round pick on him last year. So even without Drew Lock, with Driscoll in there, Fant playing great. A little bit of a pump the brakes here on Lloyd Cushenberry. Had a terrible week, and this is a player that I did not like. A lot of people did like this pick. They had second, third round grades on Lloyd Cushenberry. It was a player that I had a fifth, sixth round grade on. I was not a fan of his pass protection coming out of LSU, and he had a decent week one, but really struggling this week against obviously a great interior defensive line, but just taking away his boost from last week. I think that was a little premature. He really struggled, so a little pump the brakes on that one. Isang Bassi starting in the slot. Nothing special here for Denver here, but is looking effective in the slot. So he's going to get some respect, just looking like a serviceable slot corner there for Denver, an undrafted pickup. And then Driscoll looked okay. Kind of makes you think, like, Drew Lock, basically all physical tools, right? Well, that's the same deal with Jeff Driscoll. So I'm not saying Jeff Driscoll can be as good as Drew Lock, but I can't really think of a whole lot of reasons why he couldn't. They both looked fairly similar, to be honest. So just a note there on Jeff Driscoll. It was just one game. Steelers weren't prepared for him, but he's got a chance here. He's got everything around him. And then Jerry Jeudy looks just incredible. Not going to go up here this week. There's still some drops that he needs to weed out, but I mean, God, he is already one of the best route runners in the league. Shelby Harris had a great week defending the run. We know he can do that, but wanted to throw that name in there. Bryce Callahan is playing well as a 5'9" corner on the outside. A lot of that is this defense doesn't press a lot. They run a lot of zone coverage, and he's playing pretty well. And then Oje Mudia on the other side of things, not so much playing great out there at corner. He had a great week one, but struggling this week against Chase Claypool. Got just obliterated on that deep ball. A little bit of a physical mismatch. Looked like the Senior Bowl there, something we saw. And it's a great transition here because Chase Claypool is going to go up +1, 70 to a 71. showing off some of that vertical ability on the outside. Again, I thought he would play more of a tight end slot receiver role here, and that has not been the case. They're sticking him outside, and he's effectively taking James Washington's role here as that deep threat. Huge touchdown this week. Looks like the Steelers did it again because they certainly have done it with Deontay Johnson, who's going to go up +2, 73 to a 75. He was on my breakouts list. I love this pick when they made it. I even compared him to Antonio Brown. And it seems that Big Ben, who has now targeted Johnson double digits in both weeks, is much more comfortable throwing to a guy that looks like Antonio Brown, who is getting open at honestly a somewhat similar level. So he's been incredible. I think he is due for a skyrocket this year. I put him on my breakouts list for a reason. Then Kevin Dotson. Honestly, to nobody's surprise, the random guard that they took in the 4th round that wasn't even on my draft board, coming out in his first start and just locking down a good interior defensive line with Jarrell Casey and company. So +2 for Kevin Dotson. Looks like another great find for the Steelers, along with Chukwuma Okorafor. I was confused why they kind of moved Banner to guard, and then they moved the other guys. Not Banner. Banner is the guy they started at tackle, but the Filer and Banner. They moved Filer to left guard. They started Banner last week, but Okorafor is a 3rd-round pick, an elite athlete coming out of Western Michigan. And I was surprised why he didn't start week 1. Maybe he was injured, but he goes out there, and I thought he was the heir apparent to kind of be the next great developmental tackle for the Steelers, which is almost guaranteed, right? Like this offensive line just shoots out prospects like this. But he gets to start at right tackle and played really well. Now, Denver, with the loss of Von Miller, he's only going against Atuachu and Sharif Finch or no, it's Malik Reed maybe, but just not great competition. But he looked the part out there at right tackle. So a high potential guy at right tackle for the Steelers. Then we got T.J. Watt going up. I mean, he's really ascending towards that Von Miller, Khalil Mack level. I mean, his pass rushing is so consistent. He's getting 5-6 pressures a week. He defends the run. He'll drop into coverage. He just does everything. He is clearly one of the best defensive players in the league, and he continues to ascend as such. Tyson Alualu, what a great pickup this has been for the Steelers. He continues to get better. It's almost like Jacksonville didn't do a good job developing him because he's clearly a great run defender, and he even has some explosiveness. He can make some noise as a pass rusher. He's never going to be a great guy, but when he has all this talent around him, it's just another guy you got to account for. And then Isaiah Buggs, again, an Alabama defensive lineman that they're developing, getting some run defense snaps in there. Looking pretty good. Just some notes. James Conner looked great this week. Good to see him back healthy in a contract year. And then Minkah Fitzpatrick actually not having a very good start to the season. I think he'll have some big games moving forward, but just a little note there, Minkah not looking the best. On to the Carolina at Tampa Bay game. No movement here for Carolina. They pretty much looked as expected across the board. A couple notes, though. Curtis Samuel not playing very well. Seems to be regressing again. He's kind of a roller coaster player. And Derek Brown not looking so good, especially in run defense, which is a concern. He's kind of gone up against two of the better interior offensive lines, so I'll cut him some slack on that. But not looking great for the top 10 pick out the gate. I think he'll be fine, but just a note. And then for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I will note right off the bat, I'm glad I didn't lower Brady. I mean, he passed the eye test. This is not a Drew Brees situation. His arm talent is very much still there. And we know he can throw an accurate ball downfield, which he did week 1. It just didn't really work out as far as there's some pass interference, some miscommunications, all that stuff. But looking much, much better this week against a really bad Panthers defense. And I think things will continue to improve as he establishes more chemistry and gets Chris Godwin back, most notably. But the interior offensive line looking good. Ollie Marpet emerging as one of the top guards in the league. And Alex Kappa, been a really good run blocker for this team. Potentially benefiting from having Tristan Wirfs next to him, who is also dominating as a run blocker. He looks great. All of these rookie tackles looking really good. So he's going to go up. And then we have Antoine Winfield. I'm going to take a victory lap on this one. I had him a top 20 player in this class, the number 1 safety. I thought he was a plug-and-play, almost Tyrann Mathieu clone. And here he is. What do you have? Double-digit tackles, a sack, a pass breakup. He's everywhere. He's one of those players that he just shows up everywhere. So Antoine Winfield going up +1. What a find in the second round. I can't believe that he fell when he did. He's uber athletic too. That's what I don't get. Like, yeah, he's 5'9". Yeah, he had a couple injuries in college, but man, this was an elite level prospect, a true first round talent that they stole in the second at a huge position of need. So I think he'll continue to climb as his rookie season goes, but really impressive start for Antoine Winfield. Amidst a secondary that's really growing, this Bucs defense I think is going to continue to shape up as the year goes on. But Carlton Davis looks really good too, which is huge because I like Sean Murphy-Bunting. Dean had a much better week as well at corner, so Davis had just a manly interception. He looked good this week, so the secondary getting some respect here. And then just some notes, Leonard Fournette did impress me, particularly in the receiving game. Looked a little bit more fluid catching the ball out of the backfield, and maybe that's just going from whatever he had in Jacksonville to then catching balls in stride, having Tom Brady hitting him out of the backfield. It very well could be as simple as that. And then also Scotty Miller, I thought this was a big opportunity for him to really establish himself as a starting caliber receiver and earn Tom Brady's trust, and it wasn't the case. He didn't really show up this week. He got a couple targets, didn't really impress with those, so stock down, I think, for Scotty Miller, who had every opportunity in the world against the Panthers defense with Godwin out this week, and just kind of and then we mentioned Levante David earlier. He has been phenomenal. I mean, if they can get this pass rush to be legitimately, consistently, at least, top 16, the back end of this defense is nasty. And a young secondary that, like I said, is going to continue to grow as the year goes on. Look for them to have a big week against Denver this week. Then we have the Jacksonville at Titans game, and the Jags are going to include the Week 3 game here against Miami. Obviously, James Robinson's got to go up. Another victory lap for me. For those podcast listeners out there, I hope you're reaping the benefits of listening to the podcast, because I said early August, go get James Robinson right now, because this is a great opportunity. And then they went and traded Leonard Fournette a couple weeks later, and here you go. I didn't necessarily, I wasn't crazy about him coming out, but just he is clearly the most talented running back on that roster now and before the season started. And I said when they cut Leonard Fournette that, this was an upgrade for them. James Robinson is a legitimate dude. It showed week 1 that he's a better running back. And I think that rating is going to continue to go up. He's not an elite athlete. I think his ceiling is something like a Kareem Hunt. But just add James Robinson to the list of, undrafted running backs, showing why if you scout well, you don't need to draft a running back super early or pay one. Then you have Andrew Norwell. He's been great. AJ Cann going up 3 as well. These guys are buying a lot of time for Gardner and contributing as run blockers as well, helping James Robinson pave the way. And then Keelan Cole is back. He's had a roller coaster career, and he seems to have things under control. He's in a contract year. Could potentially, if he plays like this, be a decent name for free agency this offseason. Or maybe Jacksonville retains him. I don't know. Laviska Shenault looks great. Second-round pick for the Jags and a deep receiver class. I liked this fit because I was actually confident that Jay Gruden would find a way to use him creatively. He's not an elite route runner. He's very similar to Deebo Samuel in that way. But they're putting him in the backfield. They're having him run simple concepts just to get him the ball. And he's rewarding Jacksonville for that. He looks awesome. With all that receiver talk, though, where's D.D. Westbrook? Is he hurt? He got out there against the Dolphins and just hasn't really done much. So what's going on with D.D. Westbrook? He's kind of a missing cog in this offense. He must be beat up because I can't really, unless they're that impressed by Keelan Cole. But Westbrook also, I think, in a contract year. So a deep group of receivers there in Jacksonville, but I'm surprised that D.D. Westbrook is not getting in on the Gardner Minshew action. And then on the Titans side of the ball, just a couple players here. Jonnu Smith, +2. I talked about this in the Denver game, but he is one of the more underrated players. And how many tight ends are we talking about this week? So many great athletes, too. I mean, Jonnu Smith is legitimately explosive, but where he's grown the most is making tough, contested catches. And Tannehill's gotten to the point where he really trusts him. You can go back to the Ravens playoff game where he was a big reason that they had all that momentum early, because he had just a gut shot of a spectacular catch against that Ravens team. Made another really impressive catch over the middle in traffic. Great ball placement by Tannehill. Jonnu looking really good. Still iffy on his blocking abilities, but definitely a mismatch problem and becoming a trusty go-to target, which is a big deal because they're missing A.J. Brown right now. He's kind of been this team's A.J. Brown while he's been out. Very similar players in a lot of ways. Then you have Derrick Henry going down 1. I mean, you guys have seen it. He's just not looking very explosive. It's almost like he needs really good blocking in front of him to gush defenses. He's just not a quick starter. He needs room to get started, but obviously when he gets that room, that's great. But that's kind of always been the thing with Derrick Henry is he's inconsistent. He's dependent on the blocking, kind of like a lot of running backs. I don't know. I've never been the biggest Derrick Henry guy. I boosted him up because of how impressive he was down the stretch last year and those physical traits, but off to a bad start for Derrick Henry. Let's just put it that way. Tannehill's going to get a plus note here. Looked really good. And then Jonathan Joseph looks like a good free agent signing. This corner room is I'm not crazy about this group of corners, and getting a veteran in there who can still move in Jonathan Joseph has actually really helped this secondary. Christian Fulton looked good as well this week. He could be due for a boost if he plays well against the Vikings. All right, on to the Washington versus Cardinals game. Terry McLaurin continues his climb. Was potentially just garbage time here, but he did beat Patrick Peterson for a touchdown on a nice short route, and he just continues to impress. He's really all they have on offense. Antonio Gibson looks all right. I don't think it's anything crazy here, but getting closer to that starting caliber running back level. He's doing the most with what he can with bad blocking in front of him. So the rookie looking like a pretty decent pick there, Antonio Gibson. Kevin Pierre-Louis going to go up +1. This looks like a really good low-level free agent signing here. He's a really great athlete that has been a kind of a kick cover guy for the majority of his career and actually got an opportunity due to some injuries in Chicago last year. Washington saw the tape and was like, wow, that guy's actually a really good player with excellent sideline-to-sideline speed, a veteran that clearly has at least some understanding of coverages for being a special teamer for the majority of his career. And they were right. He's really playing well. A deep linebacker room, but he has taken a starting role there. So he's actually a pretty high upside late career bloomer here. Certainly worthy of some attention. And then Tim Settle, buried on a really deep defensive line. A lot of you guys know I like me some Tim Settle. Really good run defender. He's got some quick feet for a huge dude, strong arms. He can even impact as a pass rusher. He's a guy that, if you need a run defender on the inside, see if Washington would trade this guy. I mean, he's buried on the depth chart, but he had 3 or 4 defensive stops in like 18 snaps this week. He's an impressive player. I just want to see him get more of an opportunity. He's always been buried behind a deep defensive line here. And then just some notes. Jaron Christian at left tackle played pretty decent this week against Chandler Jones, so could be worthy of a boost there. And then Ronald Darby has had a couple good weeks as well. Certainly catching my attention, changing teams over here to Washington. And then for the Cardinals, some movement on the defense. The offense kind of looked exactly what I expected, other than Andy Isabella catching my attention on that deep ball. I want to see him get more involved. Certainly some high upside. And then J.R. Sweezy has been kind of a liability at guard. Could we see like Josh Jones step into right guard there if Sweezy doesn't play well? Just something to keep an eye on. But lots of discussion points for this defense that didn't have an amazing game against Washington. I mean, I don't want to truly say it. I mean, they played well when it mattered. We're kind of learning a lot about this Cardinals defense. But anyway, Corey Peters played really well early on. Impacting as a pass rusher as well. We know he's a good run defender, but showing that he's not done up there in age, but 74 to a 75. And then Devondre Campbell, Isaiah Simmons. This is an interesting conversation. Simmons has not been able to take this job as this 6'4" linebacker from Devondre Campbell, who's a very similar physical profile. Campbell's kind of holding on to it right now. He's playing really well, showing some coverage instincts that he hasn't shown before. So +1, 70 to a 71, seems to kind of have a fire lit underneath him after he chose to sign here, and then they drafted his replacement immediately. But cool to see that. And then Patrick Peterson, just kind of a slow descension here. He's still a good corner, I do believe that, but certainly not someone that I think you should be throwing in the elite corner conversation any longer, and his rating should reflect that. And then we have Hassan Reddick had a great week. I mean, we need more than a 3-pressure, 1-sack game to raise Hassan Reddick, who's effectively done nothing for his entire career here. And then Zach Allen, a defensive lineman I liked a lot last year, was drafted outside of scheme fit. He was an edge, 4-3 edge at Boston College. They draft him, ask him to play a lot of 3-tech, 4-eye, which he's still doing, but he's beefed up. He looks a little better, more comfortable in year 2 here. So something to keep an eye on there. Zach Allen, a really high character, high work ethic type of player that could be a big impact for this defense that has impressed to this point this season. Then we have the Ravens at Texans game, starting with the Ravens side of the ball. Bradley Bozeman looks good on the offensive line, particularly from pass protection where he's struggled in years past. The rest of that offensive line didn't look all that great this week, especially at Tyree Phillips at right guard, looked really bad. The tackles looked fine. That's kind of standard for the Ravens, but that's going to be an interesting matchup against the Chiefs pass rush with Chris Jones in there. I would put Chris Jones on Tyree Phillips every snap next week. Could cause some issues for the Ravens. Anyway, J.K. Dobbins looks great. The rookie out of Ohio State looks like a great find for the Ravens. I don't think it's too long before he cements himself as the full-time starter here. I mean, Ingram is still super talented. But obviously the long-term answer at running back has been found here in J.K. Dobbins. Marcus Peters, a truly remarkable interception. He was playing the outside third in a cover 3, was covering someone else, or it may have been cover 2. I could be wrong, but it looked like a cover 3. But basically saw a crossing route coming his way, was totally not responsible for it, and just doubled back and had a nice diving interception. Totally got Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's not Watson's fault. It was a crazy good play. Those are the kind of zone instincts that we don't always see from Peters. He's been known as a guy that will blow some of those assignments, and maybe it was just a really crazy risk. But through the first 2 weeks of this season, that has not been the case. Against 2 pretty decent quarterbacks, he's not getting annihilated out there. So a good start for Marcus Peters. Got paid at the end of last season. Really awesome number 2 compliment to Marlon Humphrey. And then LJ Fort holding on to that linebacker spot. This team drafted some young studs, but he gets brought back here, and he's actually playing really well. He's playing a lot better than Patrick Queen right now. So gets a little respect here, making some plays in coverage, good run defender. And then we have just a note that Jimmy Smith is playing safety, so take that as you will. And then for the Texans, this young offensive line is struggling out the gate. They started to come on late last season, but off to a slow start for sure. Titus Howard, second week in a row, kind of getting embarrassed out there. He hasn't had the easiest matchups, but you're a starting tackle. You shouldn't be getting embarrassed. It's not like, Judon and Frank Clark are an elite, edge threat. And then Max Sharping really struggling as well at left guard. Again, a guy who's had some pretty tough matchups, but given up, I think, a couple of pressures each week. Watson needs that offensive line to get better, not worse. And then Justin Reed is really impressed this year. I loved him coming out. I thought this was such a steal because they gave up those first-round picks. This would have been the second first-round pick on the Deshaun Watson trade-up, but I thought they got a first-round prospect in the third round by drafting Justin Reed, and he's absolutely proved that to be true. I mean, he looks phenomenal. He's kind of one of these safeties. I don't want to say Jamal Adams necessarily, but he's one of these do-it-all safeties that's just everywhere. Very similar to what we said about Antoine Winfield, actually. So 80-81 for Justin Reed, having a great season. And we mentioned Whitney Merciless. We had our eye on him, who had a bad week 1. The veteran seems to be nearing the end here, really struggling to get after the quarterback. -1, 79 to a 78. All right, 3 more games to go. We're making a decent pace here. Chiefs at Chargers. Derek Nottie impressing in run defense. He's one of the up-and-coming star run defending nose tackles. Chargers were running the ball well early, but he helped bunker down, get some stops that helped them win this game at the end of the day. Then L'Jarius Sneed. Whoo, man. What a find by the Chiefs here. I loved him as a mid-round flyer, and they took that chance on an athlete, as this team loves to do, and boy, did it pay off. Moving him to corner looks great. Back-to-back weeks with an interception for the rookie. I'm not sure Bashaud Breeland's going to get that job back when he comes back. If it is, it probably will be in the slot. And then another young athlete that this team took a chance on, Tershawn Wharton. I'm not going to act like I had a pre-draft eval on the guy, but he's getting into the mix here, making some plays in run defense. So definitely making a name for himself as an undrafted addition for this team. And then Anthony Hitchens, the linebacker, yikes, man. Just assaulted by Herbert and Josh Kelly and Hunter Henry. We know he's not a good cover player. This is, ooh, man, him or Jimmy Graham, probably the worst contracts in the NFL right now. And then just a bunch of notes here. I'm glad I didn't completely overreact because Kaleki Assemble did not have a good week this week. Tyreek Hill has been quiet. Andrew Wiley at right guard. Sammy Watkins just does what he does and disappeared after the first week of the season. So the offense for the Chiefs, some question marks heading into next week's game against the Ravens. Frank Clark, again, just disappeared. No pressures this week against Brian Bulaga and Sam Tevy. So rough week for Frank Clark. But on the other hand, Taco Charlton, former first-round pick for the Dallas Cowboys, went to Miami. Now he's here for Kansas City, his third team in a year. But a really good week getting after the quarterback. So not going to go up after 1 week, but worth a note for sure. And then for the Chargers, I will talk about Justin Herbert a little bit. If you really want to hear me go into him, go check out the Chargers portion of my podcast on Wednesday. But he, for the most part, looked good. He looked comfortable. He knew the playbook. He was getting through his reads. And just to see that was enough to, boost him up a little bit. He looked pretty good. Now, again, go check out my podcast. It's not all good. In fact, I thought it was ultimately more bad than good. But like I said in a tweet, more bad than good, but actually looked better than I expected for whatever that's worth. So gonna get some credit here. Just a good start for Justin Herbert. We'll see how the rest of his season plays out. I expect him to be the starter moving forward. Then we have Virgil Green, having one of his better seasons as that blocking specialist for the Chargers here. A good compliment to a guy in Hunter Henry who's a good receiving threat. Virgil Green is just kind of a beast and a mauler, so kind of a late career surgence as a blocker. The offensive line, we're finally seeing the rookies from 2017 in contract seasons step up. Dan Feeney has been kicked into center. Pouncey, I don't know if he's out for the year or what's going on there, but they might not need him. Dan Feeney looks like at least a really good pass protector at center. And Forrest Lamp, he's healthy. He's in there. He's looking like the prospect we all loved coming out of college. So +2, 68 to a 70. Could be on a fast track. I mean, he's been really good. It's not a coincidence that this run game is looking really good right now. And then Josh Kelly going to go up again as well. I give a lot of credit to Anthony Lynn. He's a former running backs coach. We saw a clip in Hard Knocks of him working with, who was it, like Darius Bradwell or some running back I've never heard of. But it was a cool insight to see kind of how Anthony Lynn has one-on-ones with these running backs and, talks about the style of running back you want to be. And it seems to me that he's sat down with Josh Kelly and be like, yeah, you were kind of a rudderless running back at UCLA. That was my opinion of him. Like, he is a decent athlete, but I didn't really see what he did particularly well. So I think Anthony Lynn, I got to give him credit as a former running backs coach and running back himself of being, let's watch. And the running backs I would imagine that he's watching here are guys like Kareem Hunt, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire potentially against this Chiefs team. Guys like that kind of lower center of gravity, contact balance back who can make an impact in the receiving game and have patience as a runner. And that's what I'm seeing from Josh Kelly. So I'm really impressed from what I've seen. I guess you can say I missed on him. I didn't see this in college. I didn't think this was a particularly good pick. I like Justin Jackson. But Josh Kelly seems to be a better back than Josh Jackson at this point. Or Josh Jefferson? What? It's a double J. I'm sorry. It's not Josh Jackson. But anyway. And then Jerry Tillery has been stealing the show for the Chargers. Playing a little edge, playing a little, 4-eye technique, playing some true interior defensive lineman. they have so much flexibility with this defensive line. Bosa's playing great, by the way, but they get Tillery, Bosa, Ingram can hit you from every direction, and Nwosu's playing great. So Tillery, getting him to be that kind of last missing piece as an interior pressure getter and can do some things from the outside that allows you to kick Bosa inside or Ingram inside, it's really helping this pass rush, and the defense is truly benefiting. I mean, they were slowing down Mahomes with this pass rush, which is not easy to do. So the former first-round pick, Jerry Tillery, showing why he was drafted in the first round, getting his career back on track here. You love to see it, so good for Jerry Tillery. And then we have just some notes here. Trey Turner, not good in his Chargers debut, did have to deal with Chris Jones. We're gonna get to see who, in a lot of ways, who won that trade this week. Trey Turner against Russell Okung, the matchup we've all been waiting for this week. Desmond King looks like a natural at strong safety, filling into that Derwin James role. On the other hand, Nasir Adderley is struggling. No movement this week, but just some notes there at the safety spot. We mentioned Uchenna Nwosu, and Kenneth Murray looks good out there in coverage as well. Really impressive pass deflection in crunch time down the field. Big time play from Murray, showing off some of that athleticism and ability to get some depth in his drops. That was a big criticism of him coming out of Oklahoma. On to one of, if not the games of the week. New England at Seattle, Sunday Night Football lived up to the hype. We talked about Cam Newton. Boy, was I wrong on what he was going to look like this year. Julian Edelman going up. I mean, man, what a statement from him to show us that not only can he still play at a high level, but he can do it without Tom Brady. He can do it at this age. He can do it making plays down the field. It doesn't matter. He's just a baller, and he's going back up. Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle graded out incredibly well week one against a hapless Dolphins pass rush, and he takes advantage of playing another bad pass rush here against Seattle, but there's some cadence to that. Belichick saw something in him. He traded for him several years ago. They now have a need there with Marcus Cannon opting out, and Illuminor looks like the next great find. Keep in mind, this is somewhat reminiscent of the Trent Brown trade. A little bit different prospect. Illuminor doesn't have the length that Brown had, and he didn't cost quite as much, but it was fairly similar. So Illuminor coming in as a guard converted to tackle, playing like a beast. Belichick has historically liked these massive 330-plus pound tackles, Brown, Cannon, and now Illuminor. So definitely a riser here and a classic Bill Belichick move to just, tackle's a super hard position to find, unless you're Bill Belichick, apparently. And then Dietrich Wise, the defensive end here, contract year for him, and he just makes plays. He doesn't get a ton of playing time, but he stops the run as that rotational four-tech, as a kind of a defensive end edge hybrid type, and then he'll kick inside, and he can be this team's best pass rusher a lot of the time. So he had a good season last year, and he's continuing to look good in still somewhat limited snaps in a pretty specific role, but that's kind of how the Belichick defense works. Then some notes, and N'Keal Harry and Bird had great weeks. Could very well be due for a boost if both these guys continue to play well here with Cam Newton. And Stephon Gilmore, on the other side of 30 now, he's had some tough matchups against DK Metcalf and Devontae Parker, but those aren't exactly, Julio Jones and all these elite receivers. Obviously, Metcalf is a different animal in his own, but Gilmore not quite playing like he did in his Defensive Player of the Year season. Could be due for a little drop-off. He's on the other side of 30 now. And then for the Seahawks, Russell Wilson going to go up. He is now just one little spot there short of Mahomes, who I have it at 97. You make a pretty strong case that Russell has outplayed Mahomes for about a whole season now. So it's, I think, a very real conversation to have at this point, what we've seen from Russell. I think the most accurate deep ball thrower we've ever seen, or at least throws the most catchable deep ball. And he is just dominating in the let Russ cook era of the Seattle Seahawks. So to me, I think the clear-cut favorite for MVP, looking great. And Damian Lewis did it again this week. He had like a 31 pass block grade, which is one of the worst on the week, and then like a 90 run block grade. This is what he did at LSU, keep in mind. He just has terrible footwork and technique as a pass protector, and that's why I did like this pick, but I was like, it doesn't really solve their pass protection issues. But man, he's an asset in the run game. He is just dominating, just like he did at LSU. So I think he can improve, especially kind of trial by fire here. And if he can figure out the pass protection, I mean, Damian Lewis can be an elite guard in the NFL because he just mauls dudes in the middle. But I don't know if he's a great scheme fit, again, for the let Russ cook thing. Just something to keep an eye on there. And then DK Metcalf is going to go up. Had a great game, great week. We all love DK Metcalf. He still does struggle with drops. He's got 3 drops this season. And, I'm just going to stop there. He's on the way up. I only say that because I think there's some people that think DK Metcalf is like a top 10 receiver. His highlight reel is incredible. He makes some big splash plays. He's a perfect fit with Russell Wilson, who, like I said, throws the best deep ball we've ever seen potentially. But there are flaws in his game still to DK Metcalf. And I'm not some, 3-cone draft hater of DK Metcalf. He was my number 1 receiver in the class. There's a lot of DK Metcalf talk, and I'm sure there's people saying that he's an elite wide receiver. I don't think he's there yet. But he is improving that route running downfield, and I would like to see him weed out some drops and even some concentration stuff in traffic. But those would be the criticisms of DK Metcalf for why his game isn't full rounded and why he isn't Julio Jones. Let's just say that. Brian Moan is an undrafted defensive tackle defending the run, going up +3. And then some notes here. Greg Olsen, I really thought about lowering him, but he did have a good week 1, but a brutal drop that gave the Patriots 7 points to start this game. David Moore is just a really good deep threat. He is a great third here. He might honestly render Josh Gordon's potential return useless. I mean, Moore is just such a great vertical receiver. In a lot of ways, like a Marvin Jones for the Lions. It's just kind of a good contested catch, go get it kind of guy. Quentin Dunbar had a great pick this week. Really good acquisition, but he did struggle week 1. But if he can play like that all season, he's definitely going to be on the rise and someone that's going to get a real nice contract from somebody. And then I just want to note, Jamal Adams was incredible flying around the field. He was one of the only guys that seemed to be able to stop Cam Newton as far as his running ability. But there's a couple plays like, what are you doing, Jamal? He's just like watching Julian Edelman run across his face, getting beat across the top. Really bad coverage grade this week. I think just a bad game from Jamal Adams. I don't want to overreact. I love Jamal. But not showing the best coverage ability there for Seattle, and was honestly a big reason that New England was so close in this game. But was also a reason that they didn't score more in the run game. So some hits and some misses this week for Jamal Adams, but the coverage was weird this week. Then we got the Saints-Raiders game. Drew Brees is going to go down. I'm not going to panic just yet. I actually think the Saints probably beat Green Bay this week. Not having Michael Thomas out there hurts. Emmanuel Sanders is not playing well, and Jared Cook was bad this week too. But the arm talent is clearly not there. I think it's hurting Drew Brees' confidence. And the accuracy is falling off a little bit as well. I don't want to completely panic here, but this is something that I think is very real. We've seen it with guys like Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, where they have crazy expectations, and then all of a sudden it's just like, whoop, it's gone. So we'll see. It's a big game against Green Bay. I think if Drew Brees comes out and can't execute against a Green Bay defense that's not very disciplined, and they can't, even without Michael Thomas, it's not so much about that. It's just, if he's not sharp, I would really start to worry. But Alvin Kamara is helping to carry things for this offense. He looks so good. They paid him before they kind of saw a healthy Alvin Kamara back out there, because he wasn't quite the same last year, but he's back. He's one of the best running backs in the league. He's paid as such. I think he's the third highest paid running back in the league, and I think that's perfectly fair for what he does as a receiver. And then you have Emmanuel Sanders, like we said. He's going to go down. It's just not looking like his old self. I mean, he's 33 years old. Certainly concerning that he really couldn't step up without Michael Thomas out there, and even with him out there week 1, he didn't play particularly well. Malcolm Roach is going to go up. I thought about increasing him last week after a couple splash plays. Like I said last week, I like Malcolm Roach. He was rated pretty high for an undrafted defensive lineman, +2. I had a 4th-round grade on this dude. I have no idea why he didn't get drafted. I think it's because he's a tweener. But man, he was a high upside I thought, really good flyer to take in the 4th or 5th round, and nobody did. And the Saints pick him up, and when you only draft 4 players and the 4th player is like a wasted pick on a quarterback no one's ever heard of, well, adding Malcolm Roach as an undrafted free agent is a great way to compensate for that. And when you have cap issues, getting Malcolm Roach, who just might replace Sheldon Rankins. I seriously think Malcolm Roach has a really high upside. If you're going to lose Sheldon Rankins, well, Malcolm Roach is a similar prospect that could be able to take over as a starter here, who's off to a great start as an undrafted rotational lineman. But Malcolm Jenkins looks slow and old, got beat multiple times across the face. Granted, did have to deal with that bad man that we're going to talk about for the Raiders in a second. Not talking about Derek Carr, we're talking about the tight end. But -2 for Malcolm Jenkins, just, getting up there in age. I've always been a big Malcolm Jenkins fan, but between the Sanders and Jenkins signings, it really feels like the Saints are reaching a little bit, just trying to milk this window, milk every little last drop out of this thing. And ultimately, if Drew Brees can not look as bad as he did, they're going to be able to do that and be a really good team. Big game for them on Sunday night. I think it's a bigger game for the Saints than it is for Green Bay, for sure. Adam Troutman looked good, just 8 snaps, but a nice play down the field. I liked him as a prospect. Was surprised by his 40 time, but for a while was my number 1 tight end. And then Alex Anzalone is playing good at linebacker for the Saints. You like to see that. And Janoris Jenkins had another good week for the Saints after a pick 6 of Tom Brady last week. And then for the Raiders, we talked about that bad man, Darren Waller. One of the best players in the NFL for a lot of reasons right now. For a lot of the reasons George Kittle is, but he's basically George Kittle without the blocking. I mean, both these guys are elite mismatch problems. He is the reason the Raiders won this game. Raiders fans want you to give Derek Carr credit. I mean, sure, he executed. Darren Waller was getting wide open on 15-yard crossers, and John Gruden dialed up a great game, and Derek Carr executed. He played like a system quarterback. He played fine. Darren Waller is the one that impressed me. I mean, this dude is such a tough cover. I don't really know how you cover him. He's 6'6". He's lightning fast. He has great hands. He runs after the catch. You really, I think, need to double him with someone across the field, because a crosser with Darren Waller is just unguardable. And John Gruden certainly knew that. And the Saints did not adjust, and they lost because of it. But Bryan Edwards looked good. I talked about him on Twitter. He, to me, on draft night, felt like this year's Terry McLaurin for me. I don't know if he'll be as good as Terry McLaurin. It's probably pretty unlikely. But a lot of people liked Bryan Edwards, and they really liked this pick. And I didn't. I had an almost identical grade on Edwards as I did on Terry McLaurin, which was like a 5th or a 6th round grade. As like a higher upside, deep threat kind of guy, but someone that just didn't always produce in college and didn't really catch my attention. Well, almost immediately here in the NFL, he's catching my attention. He looks quicker than I thought I saw at South Carolina. Made a great catch in the back of the end zone that I want to say got called back for holding or something. But he's run blocking his butt off, so I like to see that. He seems to establish himself as an outside starter here. Although Zay Jones made a nice catch in this game. But I don't think Zay Jones is going to be overtaking Bryan Edwards' job based on what I saw. And then some fallers here for the Raiders. Max Crosby has 1 pressure on 57 pass rushing snaps. I'm sorry to poke fun at you Raiders fans, but you kind of brought it on yourself saying that he was better than Nick Bosa because of sack numbers. Don't look at sack numbers, guys. His pressure rate, Max Crosby, was average for a starting edge player, and he's now well below average. He can't get after the quarterback. In fact, his backup, Carl Nassib, who I thought, I caught some criticism from Raiders fans because I was like, yeah, you should probably sign Carl Nassib because I don't think Max Crosby is a starting caliber edge rusher. Raiders fans are like, what are you talking about? He was better than Nick Bosa. Well, Carl Nassib has 4 pressures on 21 pass rush snaps. Max Crosby has 1 pressure on 57 pass rush snaps. You can do the math. Max Crosby's fine, but he's not a long-term answer at edge for the Raiders. I'll just leave it at that. Then you got Corey Littleton. He was great for the Rams last year, but someone whose football opinion I respect said that what they saw on Corey Littleton's tape did not match what his PFF coverage grade was. And that's been revealed for the first 2 weeks of the season. I mean, he's been really bad against the run. His tackling's been way worse, but it has been a concern. He has not been the same in coverage through 2 weeks. And when I say that, I mean like he's getting attacked and abused and exploited. So I think he can turn it around, but I'm really got a red flag there next to Corey Littleton, who got a lot of money to come in here for the Raiders. And then just a couple more notes here before we get out of here. Foster Moreau looked good at tight end, one of my guys, just kind of buried there behind Darren Waller. And Damon Arnett had a better week here, week 2, the rookie first-round corner. All right, there is your studs and duds for NFL week 2. Please do hit that like button. I hope you guys enjoyed, and enjoy your weekend. Cheers, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace out.